I'm Sergeant Wolford, and I'm here to give you your suicide prevention briefing for the year 2009. Some goals of the mental health clinic and the Air Force in general are to educate the people of the military and of the Air Force about what is suicide, what it means to our people, and how can we prevent it. Suicide prevention is a community responsibility. It's my responsibility to be on the lookout for risk factors and people that I think may have suicidal ideations, and it's your responsibility. We are all a team in this. Suicide in the Air Force. These are just some statistics. Numbers have shown that our enlisted population is affected more than our officers. They tend to be unmarried, younger, enlisted airmen, generally males that are completed suicides. 38% of the suicides completed in the Air Force were actually seen in mental health for different problems. They're kind of the standard problems that we look at when someone's having suicidal ideation: relationship, legal problems, work problems. Some more statistics that just have shown that our suicide attempts are very different from our suicide completions. The attempts are generally lower ranking females, aged 17 to 24, usually single or separated or divorced, no longer married, and a lot of times they suffer from mental health problems, mood disorders, etc. But again, that like we saw with the completed suicides, relationship, legal, and work problems were also factors. When we break it down into command, ACC saw mostly males, 93% enlisted, and 60% of the males were 25 and up, so a higher age range for completed suicides in ACC. They usually complained of relationship problems and then financial, legal, or work issues, which are pretty common. So dealing with a life crisis, this is like what we talked about in our stress management briefing. Everyone deals with stuff. It's just how we cope with it, how we get over it, that determines whether we get to this point or not. So coping depends on what kind of problems you're dealing with, how well you're able to handle them, your physical health, your mental health. Factors that protect against suicide: having effective coping skills, having an optimistic outlook, having a marriage or a social support system as your family, having a positive spiritual influence, or a sense of belonging to a group. And we see that a lot as a military population. That's very important to feel accepted. Some suicide risk factors. Like we talked about, prolonged or unmanageable stress. You're just continuously dealing with things that you haven't had to deal with before. Family problems, work problems, financial problems are big ones. Mental health issues are also things, a sense of hopelessness or helplessness are big triggers. And also substance abuse, we've seen a lot. So risk factors aren't a guarantee that someone's going to commit suicide. If you have a friend that you said, hey, they meet 4 of those risk factor criteria, that just might be someone you want to talk to. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to commit suicide. Conditions of vulnerability might indicate that there are different problems in their lives, and there are different ways to go about suicide prevention. So when to seek help. This is something that you can look for in your lives, or maybe a coworker's life, when you're just continuously having stress that you haven't had to deal with before, difficulty functioning because of it, and then accumulating risk factors. When to be concerned about yourself, a friend, or a coworker. Some things we talked about before, just different stresses in the life, escalating substance abuse, unwillingness to seek help, and under investigation for facing criminal charges. That's a big deal. If someone feels like they're going to lose their military career, that's a huge risk factor. Some signs of distress, so maybe just a little bit more physical signs that you would be able to see a little bit easier. Anxiety, agitation, they're getting really irritated easily, no appetite, insomnia, talking about death. That was something we saw with the guy at Fort Hood who had the mass homicide. He gave all his property away. He was talking about death. So that should have really triggered somebody that maybe they should have talked to him about suicide or homicide. So what to do? We have this acronym called LINK. L is for look, be aware, be alert of risk factors. I is for talk with the individual. N is to note the seriousness of your concern, let them know that you really care. And K, know how to get help. Do not approach a conversation if you don't have resources available when the person says, yes, I do want help, and you have something to offer them. Helpful approaches. The number one helpful approach is to listen. And then, like we said, have resources available. Be direct and honest. Take reports of suicide seriously. Don't just think, oh, you're going through a bad time, it'll be okay. Take it very seriously and report it to the appropriate authorities. Unhelpful approaches, don't judge them, don't give advice, don't get angry with them. They're very vulnerable at this stage. And then how to get urgent help. These are some of your resources that we talked about. Your local ER or urgent care center or your base facilities are always available. These are some ways that you can kind of approach the situation if you feel like the person meets a few risk factors and you want to talk to them about it. These are just some different ways to maybe try and approach the conversation without making yourself or them feel awkward. I've noticed you're feeling upset. What do you think might help? Have you thought about seeking help? Those are kind of open-ended questions that might help a conversation spark up about it. Where to go for help? Your mental health clinic, family advocacy, any of your base-wide organizations. Your chaplains are fantastic as well. Advantages and consequences of seeking help. Advantages are endless. A lot of people come to mental health and they're very concerned about their job, but the fact is that 97% of people who seek mental health are not affected, their career is not affected. 90% of the time, no one in your command is contacted. The only time we contact your command is if you report being homicidal against someone else or suicidal and we have to hospitalize you. The Traumatic Stress Response Team is a team of not just mental health individuals, but we have chaplains, folks from the Airmen and Family Readiness Center, and we respond to a traumatic event. So if a member of your unit has committed suicide, we come out immediately after and we assess the population. We offer services just to see how everyone's dealing with it and offer basically a listening ear. That's your suicide and prevention briefing for the year 2009. If you have any questions, please let me know.